was absolutely, positively amazing. And let me get right into this. That was a very interesting beyond body experience. And it literally happened just maybe 5 minutes ago. And I want to get it out before I lose it. But let me go through and say, first of all, this did not have any feelings of motion or movement in them. This was that the previous episode I talked about the flashes and the glimpses. It's so interesting because my guides will sometimes, I believe, confirm things that I theorize by showing me something. And this is another bit of evidence for me to confirm that what I see when I shut my eyes when I'm really tired, these changing channels, is really a way to go into different realities, different worlds. This, I believe, was a parallel universe. Now, I had been up on and off most of the night. I don't know. It was weird. I was having some kind of issue sleeping. I'm not sure. And I had a few weird kind of dreams that freaked me out a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Dreams are simply your subconscious mind reaching out to you and trying to give you a message. So it is what it is. And sometimes it's a very strange thing. But about, I would say, 10, 15 minutes ago, I was just laying there. Again, I was seeing these flashes of things. At one point, I remember I saw a flash of a beach, and it was nighttime, and there were water, waves, and it was quite a beautiful, beautiful scene. And so that was interesting. But at one point, I closed my eyes. I remember there was a point where I shut my eyes and then I turned. I think this time I turned to the right, on my right side when I was in bed. So I shut my eyes, I turned to the right, and it was positively jarring what happened. When I did it, suddenly I was in the car with my mom. And it was not a dream. This was really happening. And it was so interesting. My mom, years ago, and she still does, she drove and still does to this day, drive an older model Nissan car. And I was in the passenger seat, as I'd always been when I was younger. We were driving up a hill. And I remember I looked at her, and she couldn't have been more than 25, maybe 30 years old at best. She was 25, 30 years old. She was made up. My mom was beautiful, and she was glowing, and we were on our way. It's so interesting. I remember as I was sitting there in the car, I was just looking around. I was taking everything in as we were driving. We were driving up a hill. Now, I imagined that we were somewhere in the Bay Area when we were driving. The landscape, the way there were hills and there were houses and all those things. And I lived in the Bay Area before I came out to live in Southern California. So I imagined that that's where we were. That's where we were driving. I wasn't 100% sure, but that was what my feeling was. And my mom was just sitting there and she was driving, and it was just all very kind of normal. She wasn't saying anything when I was suddenly just sitting there. And I was like, Mom, where are we going? Now, I don't know if this was weird to her or not, It must have been, maybe. I'm not sure. But I did ask her, I said, "Where are we going, Mom?" And she looked at me like, "What do you mean, where are we going?" And she said, "We're going to LeBlanc." I've never heard of a place called LeBlanc before. This gives me a feeling, maybe, and this is before me Googling. I haven't Googled anything. I don't know if there is a LeBlanc in the Bay Area or anywhere in California. I'm not sure. I've never heard that word or that city before. So please forgive me. If there is a LeBlanc in the area, then I haven't actually looked it up. I've never heard of it. And I have to tell you, in the relationship, in all my years of my mom raising me and growing up with her, we never went any place called LeBlanc. I would remember. There is no place, and especially since, you know, I was born in Chicago first, and then we came out to California to live. So again, I know our history, and since we've been out in California, we've never gone to a place called LeBlanc, nor have I ever heard of a place called LeBlanc. But that's what she said. She said, "We're going to a place called LeBlanc." And I said, "Oh." And I just went, "Oh, that's interesting." And I'm kind of looking around going, I'm thinking, where is LeBlanc? Now, this is so weird because this is not a stranger that I'm with. I'm with my mom. So I'm thinking, I don't ever recall a memory of this. Now, I told you that my mom was probably in her mid 20s, maybe 30 at best. I think I was young, probably a teenager, but I'm not sure. I didn't look at myself in the mirror. I just was sitting in the passenger side of the car. And then my mom said, after she said we were going to LeBlanc, she said, "Oh, I'm going to meet up with this group of I think it was maybe women or people." This is what I got the sense of, guys. This is what I got the sense. I got the sense that she was going to some sort of business meeting, and it was a really big deal, and I was driving with her. Now, I don't know why I'd be driving with her to a business meeting. I'm not 100% sure of that, but that's where we were going. And after she said that, I just kind of sat there and I went, this is amazing. Now, this is where I think I went wrong because during this trip, during this car trip, I was breathing. I was like I always tell you to breathe, to relax, because this was definitely something I wanted to stick with as long as I possibly could. I wanted to just carry this with me. This was amazing to me personally, on a personal level, and I'm sharing it with you. I have never had a beyond body experience, literally sitting next to my mother, and this was the case. This was the case. And again, it's so interesting. I just keep going over how beautiful my mom was. I mean, I've admired my mother ever since I can remember. She is my biggest fan, and she is my hero, 100%, and my universe. So it's always just been her and I. So I've always had this place in my heart for her. But so anyway, as we were driving, though, this was the I think the mistake or the problem that happened with this was that I started trying to tell her as if I knew the future. It was interesting. I was starting to say, Mom, I know this is going to be really hard for you to believe, but I'm from a place, and as I was starting to kind of go into this and tell her some things, I lost my grip. I was so frustrated because you know what? If I would have just kept my big mouth shut and not said anything about anything, I think that's when I really started to lose my grip on whatever reality this was. And that was it. I was back. I opened my eyes and I was looking around. And I was like, oh my gosh. Sometimes there's that moment that I'm thinking to myself, did that really happen? Did that really happen? Yes, it did. In some universe, in some reality, my mom and I are driving to a city called LeBlanc, and she's going to a meeting somewhere with a group of people someplace. And that's it. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.